how can you create a sense of a community around what you're doing? Using M1 as an example, for those of you who've been with me for more than even 3 months, you can tell there's a sense of community. And when you guys can paint that vision, you will get the attention of 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs. Question for you guys is, how do you actually demonstrate the value? I've given you a whole bunch of different things, all kinds of different heartstrings and emotional cues and logical, ways to pull on heartstrings and activate and engage somebody. How do you personally actually utilize some of this stuff in the context of your business? So I've given you guys some ideas here. There's dozens and dozens of these things. I'm trying to give you guys some context around how to actually start actioning this stuff. The first one is create a sense of a community. So using M1 as an example, for those of you who've been with me for more than even 3 months, you can tell there's a sense of community. Like, people are connected, they're doing business together. You want to show up to the calls, you want to talk to everyone else, and you want to bring your deals and conversations to that community because there's an immediate familiarity there. There's a sense of, like, an understanding, like the need to build rapport is massively reduced because everyone has a basic understanding of what it means to be part of our community. The key is, when you're building your community, don't just look at it in the context of, oh, well, I'm doing a development, so I want a community of people that are interested in development. You got to think beyond that. Like, if you have a 10-year horizon or a 20-year horizon, think about the type of people you want to collect in your life. Like, people ask me, why did I start M1? I said, honestly, I like to collect cool people. That was my initial answer. I didn't have a refined thing. I was like, I just want to collect really cool people and have them in my community. That was my initial answer. We didn't even call it M1 yet. We named it, I don't know, private something community or whatever it was. But for me, the goal was just to get cool people around and have them moving in a similar direction. So for you, what is that? How can you create a sense of a community around what you're doing? For Dave, it's obviously easy based on what we're talking about because you have almost a quasi-philanthropic approach to what you're doing. I mean, it effectively is that, because you're empowering people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, so to speak. So you can build a massive community around that, especially, and like we talked yesterday with like trend followers, like the housing crisis is a trend. Like, you couldn't be more on trend. You're like, unfortunately, but that's the trend, right? So you're positioning yourself in a way where you're trying to help solve the problem. And that's a powerful position to be in. The water company that we funded on the filtration side, they were part of the solution of the problem of too many water bottles in the landfills. Same thing. So what is the problem that you're solving? Mel, with your industrial bays that you guys are buying and potentially rehabbing, maybe you're solving other problems for smaller entrepreneurs and landlords that get squeezed out of the big box locations, right? So how do you communicate that in a way where other small business owners, like, here's an idea for you, Mel. Literally, you can go to the small business associations and talk about your method, your unique approach to what you do, create like a methodology to it, and talk about it in the context of, so here's how we support small businesses. Here's how we help entrepreneurs. And now you get invited to speak at trade shows, at events. You're still talking about your business, your fund. By the way, your fund, not your quick little project here. You now have a fund. You see it, right? Like, it's a full-blown conversation, and now you're positioning yourself as an expert in that field. You're not just, hey, we're buying this warehouse, come take a look at it. There's 4 bays, whatever, you should be an investor. It's like, yeah, this is in the fund, but here's why we're doing it. And when you guys can paint that vision, you will get the attention of 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs, 10-figure entrepreneurs. Like, that's what it is. It's your vision. Like, most people can't see beyond 3 feet. Like, they can't see beyond the immediacy of that next paycheck, next deal, we talked yesterday, be, do, have, right? The be, do, have concept is becoming the person that can facilitate this, as opposed to, oh, I just got to do this. I got to buy this deal. I got to get this thing done. But it's a hard habit to kick, right? Because it's like, you're going to leave here and, yeah, I'm gonna be shit, I gotta do, and then you get caught up in stuff, right? But if you have that fund as an overarching goal, you can do things within it and you're still moving in that same direction. It's not scattered anymore. That's the whole point. involving them in the journey. So when we were buying buildings during COVID, we bought 82 townhouses, then we bought 100 and, in fact, what was the second one? 168, 78, something like that. We bought 2 buildings side by side during COVID, and I hadn't gone to Tennessee yet, so we bought them basically online. The realtor, the broker, FaceTimed. There's a big story behind it. I was very comfortable with the transaction. If I told you guys what we paid for it, it was nothing. But we then had the fund. We closed the cash. And you know what we did after the fact? Talk about getting people involved in the journey. When the border finally opened, I was able to get on a plane with like the other 12 people that were willing to fly during COVID or whatever it was. Because, you know, it was like they'd look at you when you're checking out, give you a dirty look, like, what do you mean you're getting on a plane? I'm like, I'm allowed, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, well, you know, there was like 6 people in the cafeteria. Anyway, my point is, take them on the journey. So here's what we did. COVID, nobody could travel. My iPhone could travel, so I FaceTimed my investors, and there's an app where you can have double-sided, so you can have this side and this side playing at the same time. So I would do 2 versions. One, I would FaceTime them, and as I'd actually tour them through the property that we just closed on in the fund that they'd never seen either. And they felt engaged in the process because they actually saw me, boots on the ground, as we just closed this thing, whatever amount of weeks earlier, and I would show them all the flaws, all the issues, all this. Here's the great thing, here's the vision, here's where this is gonna go. I'd drive down the street, I'd record it, and then you're taking them on the journey. Like they're feeling like they're just part of this. So for the guy that wrote $250,000 or $500,000 as a deal, he immediately was like, okay, that's cool. And then they would feel like they're part of it. And even the people that were like, yeah, I'm too busy, I don't care, I'd still send them the video, and you know, sure enough, what would they do? They'd watch the video, right? So it's you take people on the journey with you, tell them the story. I mean, the other thing you guys can do is surveys. You know, survey your investors. We survey our clients. M1 Inner Circle, we survey you every year. What do you like about the community? What can we do more of? What don't you like? You know, all this different stuff. We're always asking for feedback. You can do the same thing with your investors. And you might be thinking, well, they might think I'm a pest. Well, who cares? They gave you their money. They obviously trust you. And if they're not interested in responding to the survey, they just won't open it. They're busy. It's fine. We get about 50 to 60% response rate on surveys. I'm not offended by it. Like, the people that don't respond, it doesn't mean that they don't like us. They're just probably busy. But it gives them a chance to have an input. Also, for those investors or those members that in the future have opinions, you can say, great, did you fill out the survey? And they're like, no. Okay, great, go fill out the survey, right? Like it creates structure, it creates order, it creates engagement, which is what you want. Beta testing. Here's something else that's really cool. So in the context of multifamily, so when the whole smartphone revolution and apps and all that stuff on your iPhone came out, all the companies that were doing property management software started doing all these apps, and they were all doing beta tests. So when before we decided which versions of things we wanted, we asked some of our investors if they wanted to get involved. They're like, why? I'm like, well, you know, do you want to have a report on your phone about the property? Some would say, I don't care, like at all. The passive investor, the doctor, the dentist, they definitely didn't care. But the analyst, oh man, they're excited. That became a referral tool. They're like, yeah, like you should totally invest with these guys. Look at this report, like, because to them that was important. That's how they saw value. So they'd be like showing everybody at the dinner. I went to an investor dinner I went to a dinner. One of my investor pulls out. He goes, so another guy goes, so how's your property doing? The guy looks at me, he pulls out the app. He goes, well, here's how the things, like he literally, sold. Like sold. The other guy didn't care about what was on it, but the fact that he had it sold the other, you understand? It sold the other guy. Like he didn't care. But because the other guy cared, it was infectious.
Measure of accountability.
Well, it's accountability, yeah. Accountability is another one. But look, offer insider information. So again, and I'll get to that one, John, but insider information. Let people feel like they're part of something that nobody else knows about yet. It's the best way to do it. So I said earlier, virtual tours, pre-announcements. So when you're going to, and this is the best way, some of you real estate brokers do this already with your deals. You have your list of people that always buy houses, pre-construction, whatever you do. What do? You email them or call them before there's even an ad, because they feel good because they kept buying condos from you or units from you or whatever it is. They feel like they're getting something no one else has access to. It makes people like feeling special. I bought a condo from Brad even before he had the blueprint, and I felt cool about it, and I did extremely well on it. Like, it's insider. Like, on the stock market, this would be insider trading. In private business, this is just good business. This is just relationships, right? This is just how it works. So let your investors feel like they're on the inside track, and they are on the inside track, because those are the people you want to cultivate. How are you doing it? Making them feel valued. Here's another one. Thank you notes. We used to crank out 300 to 400 thank you notes a month, one of our funds. A month. Yeah, there's service providers now that you can hire for thank you notes, that they'll have handwritten notes written, and it looks like your signature. I would rather just sign it, but Christmas cards, birthday cards, whatever it is, you can think of touch points with your clients. How are they feeling valued, right? Think about one of the things that when you onboard somebody into your fund, when they fill out the subscription agreement, it says their birthday on it, date of birth. So guess when their birthday is. It's right on the agreement. You send them an email, send them a text, send them a call. You could automate a lot of this stuff. My wife's media company, we send, if not thousands, tens of thousands, it is tens of thousands of automated personalized messages out on a monthly basis. Text, email, voicemail. There's even technology, my sales team uses it, where it goes straight to voicemail and leaves a personalized voicemail. What you guys want to develop eventually is something Grant Cardone calls omnipresence. You want to develop a state where you are present everywhere. And the way to do that is to leverage all the technology that exists nowadays. The question is, in what order, what sequence, what's important, and more importantly, what are you going to use it for, which is what I'm trying to teach you guys here today. But ultimately, helping them feel valued in that way will make a big difference. Other thing you guys can do, depending on the type of investors you have and the type of environment you're creating, investor spotlight. It's a huge one. We started doing this a few months ago. You guys have noticed. Last month I had Zoria on. She's bought almost 200 doors. The month before I had you guys on, Tom and Kush, how you guys raised your, because Tom and Kush literally joined M1 60 days ago, and in the first 30 days, it was 60 days ago. And in the first 30 days, they raised $1.2 or $1.4 million, which is huge because they were hitting their heads against the wall before that. So I had an investor spotlight that went out to thousands of people in our database. They got free exposure. It was a huge value add, and we do this every month. It doesn't cost me anything to do it, but I have the network, so why not take the time? They interviewed well. You know, we had a great conversation, and it went out to my entire database plus online. Like, that's, you know, it's value add. That's one thing that I do for my community. It's another way I add value to my community and makes my community more valuable. So within your investor community, what are the commonalities that you can create so that they see value well above the 100 grand or $1 million they've invested with you? Like, how are they feeling like that you are the obvious choice? Like, if they won the lottery, who would they call, you or their financial advisor? You know, hopefully both, obviously, but you want to get that call too. Right? You want them to feel like, and I'll tell you how crazy this is. I had, and you generally, if you have the attitude of serving and you're playing the long game, all kinds of people will just come out of the woodwork, and there's no resistance, there's no sales, there's no closing. It's just like, when's your next deal? I just got this 250 grand. Naran, we were talking about this yesterday, right? Like, when you passively raise money, a couple million a year, people just see value in you. They just come to you and they're like, hey, I got 500 grand. When's your next deal? Right? Like, it's not even a pitch. Like, it's just here. Right? So how do you create this for yourself? You know, and again, for you, maybe the next step is a fund. So it's not the next deal, it's the next closing. Well, that's another thing this afternoon we'll cover. Because you're not raising money for a deal anymore, you're raising for a fund, how do you create urgency? So that's the other thing we're going to talk about, because it's a perpetual raise. So how do you continue to create urgency even when you don't have a deal at that moment? So we'll talk about that this afternoon, because my first fund, I didn't have any of these mechanisms and triggers in place. And that first fund I did was painful as hell, because I didn't know how to create urgency beyond that initial transaction within the fund. So I'll try to talk about as much of that as I can this afternoon as well. Financial incentives. Make sure you run this by your securities lawyer, because this can get gray. You're allowed to offer financial incentives to your investors, but it has to be clearly disclosed and documented in the paperwork. And I don't mean rebates. Rebating is a no-no in the investment industry, especially with commissions and fees and stuff like that. I'm talking about actual incentives for your investors. So you can create tiers and ladders and waterfalls and incentives to give people either an incentive to write bigger checks, write them faster, or stay in longer. And we'll get into that more this afternoon. Don't use this as your primary crutch, just so you know. This should be like a backbone, backdrop thing, because you don't want to commoditize yourself. But ultimately, if someone's considering writing a check of $250,000 or $1 million, you want to give them the incentive, if they have the means, to obviously write the $1 million check. So how do you do that? That'll be the other piece here today. Emotional connection, we talked about this. Impact reports. Well, again, Dave, going to you with what you're doing, the impact that what you've done, if you have some data around what other people have been able to accomplish, maybe there's models in the US that have done what you're proposing to do well, maybe there's models abroad, whatever information is out there that you guys can incorporate into your investment thesis that's been substantiated somewhere else. If you're trying to pull on the emotional heartstrings of somebody in the context of what you're trying to accomplish, that piece of it will really move the needle for you. Testimonials. When you join M1 and we add value to you, we ask you to do a testimonial. Tom Cush, Mel, Vladimir, Leo, everybody who's part of M1, we ask you to do a testimonial. Why? Because, well, we know we've delivered value and we ask you to just share that. We like our testimonials. You should be collecting them as well. Because what's more powerful than somebody else, or in our case, having, I don't know, we've probably got 100+ testimonials now. I don't know if they're all up on our website, but we've got a ton of testimonials. It's me saying we're great is one thing, but 100 people, 200 people, like I'm eventually going to post every single testimonial on the website. So if you're going to go to M1, well, I'm not going to do it, someone's going to do it, but imagine the power of you going to my website and you go to testimonials tab and you just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I'm going to post every single one. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to post all 1,000 of them eventually, thousands, tens of thousands. I want every single one on there. We'll have it cataloged by like name or date or something. Like, what's more powerful than that? So with your investors, with your customers, your service providers, your tenants, your partners, whoever it is, like, start to think in that context. Now, with your testimonials, you got to create some standard operating procedures. We teach you how to do this. So for example, I'm not the one who's getting all these testimonials for you guys. I'm not chasing you. I'm not, well, hopefully you one day. I'm not chasing you. I'm not chasing you. Like, I'm not chasing you guys individually. But I have a whole team. So as soon as someone does something within my business, there's SOPs everybody follows. And it's a process. Like, for me, it is something that has to happen, but I can't, my staff, my team, they're not mind readers. All right, so I have the SOPs around that. So how do you create that for yourself? That's powerful stuff.